I had just poured myself a cup of strong black coffee. Nothing fancy, just the kind that wakes you up and slaps you in the face when I stepped outside to catch the morning sun thinking it'd be a quiet start. But you know what I got instead? The sound of metal ripping sharp and ugly, and then a woman's voice screeching from my rooftop like some demented town crier. For a second I thought I was dreaming, but nope. There she was, Karen. Not a contractor, not a city inspector, just Karen from the HOA, standing on my roof holding a crowbar in one hand and my solar panel in the other, grinning like she'd just bagged a trophy buck. The sun glinting off the glass, my brain still waking up. Then she shouted, "Today we take back our neighborhood from these eyesores." I dropped my mug coffee, splashing ceramic, shattering all over the driveway. I took off running, shouting, "Karen, what in the hell are you doing? Those panels are federally tagged. You realize you're committing a felony, right?" She didn't care. Just gave me that smug little HOA smile, pried another panel up and hollered, "This is HOA territory now. Sunshine." I wish I could say I saw this coming, but honestly, nobody ever expects the Spanish Inquisition, and definitely not from a lady who spends her weekends organizing bake sales and measuring grass height. It started weeks earlier, those passive-aggressive jabs during HOA meetings, her fingers stabbing the air in my direction, calling my roof a tech monstrosity. I brushed it off because, look, I wasn't just some guy with panels. These weren't Home Depot specials. I'd been handpicked for a Department of Energy pilot, my old life as an energy analyst finally giving me something cool to brag about at cookouts. These panels were smart encrypted and about as legal as you could get, but Karen didn't give a rip about laws when they got in the way of matching beige mailboxes. It started with the emails, first the HOA, then Karen herself. "Aesthetic violation," she said. I replied with the exemption letter stamped and signed. She shot back a threat about fines, then called a meeting where she waved around a satellite printout of my roof like it was a mugshot. I countered with neighbors who actually liked the panels. They appreciated the backup power during last month's blackout, but Karen just huffed and said my roof was ruining property values. The board was split, but Karen didn't wait for a vote. She made it personal. My cameras started catching her strolling by 5 times a day, just glaring up at the roof like she could melt the panels with her mind. The night before this mess, someone egged my electric meter real mature. Now standing in the yard, I watched Karen rip off another panel like she was unwrapping a Christmas present she hated. I yelled again, "You're destroying government property." She shot back, "Government my foot. These are just fancy patio lights." I sprinted inside for my phone. 911 was on speed dial at that point, but by the time I got back out, Karen had called in her own backup. 2 guys in paint-splattered cargo shorts, probably paid in 6-packs, helping her lower the panels to the grass. My hands were shaking as I filmed everything, the whole scene, a fever dream, neighbors watching from behind blinds and the cops finally rolling up. One officer asked, "Ma'am, did you have legal permission for this?" Karen looked like she was reciting a prayer. "The HOA has spoken. We're restoring order." I shoved my DOE paperwork at him, begging, "You need to stop this. It's federal equipment, GPS tracked, encrypted, the whole 9 yards. He gave me a look like he wasn't sure if this was a sitcom or a crime scene. Then Karen made her second big mistake. She claimed there were no warning labels, but there were UV-etched microtext developed back when I was in DC, protecting the grid from hackers, not Karen from the HOA. The cops paused one of them, Officer Vega, eyeing the singed edge of a battery pack that shorted out thanks to her amateur demolition job. He asked if it was really federal property. I nodded, and he radioed for a supervisor. Suddenly, Karen got nervous, muttered something about just wanting to take down one panel, but even the day laborers started backing away when they realized this was way over their pay grade. I was exhausted, system offline, diagnostics box hanging by a wire, my whole smart grid project torn up before sunrise. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just another neighborhood spat. Karen had crossed a line, and the fallout was going to land a lot harder than she thought. The cops took her tools, told her to leave. She stomped off, still ranting about her rights, and threatened to call her lawyer. But by dinner time that night, black SUVs were circling the block. The Department of Energy had arrived. I backed up all the footage, sent copies to my DOE contact, included photos, the whole mess. The next day, neighbors were acting like looky-loos at a traffic accident, peeking over at the pile of ruined panels. Brian, a retired engineer down the street, just shook his head and muttered, "I heard you're getting federal attention." He wasn't wrong. By 10 a.m. An agent named Durant showed up, badge clipped to his belt, calm as a stone. He inspected the wreckage, watched my security videos, nodded, and said, "This isn't just vandalism. She tampered with classified equipment. We're escalating." I almost smiled. For once, being the energy nerd in the neighborhood had paid off. They brought out all sorts of gadgets, scanned my house for data loss, EM field corruption, you name it. Looked like something out of a sci-fi flick. Karen peeked from her window jaw hanging open as agents in tactical boots roamed my yard like it was Chernobyl. But she wasn't done that night. Some anonymous flyer turned up in every mailbox, warning about unauthorized solar structures and protecting property values. The clip art son wearing sunglasses almost made me laugh. She was panicking, trying to rewrite the story, but the plot had moved on without her. The next day, the feds came back with portable antennas and forensic kits, determined that Karen hadn't just busted my hardware, she'd interrupted a test relay for a grid monitoring pilot. That triggered a cybersecurity alert. Now it was a federal compliance case. Karen thought she was fighting an eyesore, but she'd taken down a digital canary in the coal mine, and Uncle Sam doesn't take kindly to sabotage. Durant updated me, charges were being filed, tampering, obstruction, maybe even conspiracy if those workers knew what they were doing. I was a witness now, whether I liked it or not. Karen didn't go quietly. She called an emergency HOA meeting, live-streamed it from the clubhouse. Only a handful showed up. She ranted about health risks, and surveillance panels claimed I was part of some secret tech cabal, which, would be hilarious if it weren't so sad. But here's the kicker. One of the neighbors recorded the whole meltdown, posted it on Facebook, and it went viral. Local news picked it up. HOA vice president rants about solar invasion. Comments rolled in, some called her out. Others just joked about tinfoil hats. Even the HOA president, Reggie, finally stepped in to distance the board from her. In HOA speak, he basically threw her under the bus and then reversed over her twice for good measure. But that made her more desperate. The next day, Reggie's house got egged, my backup generator trailer got its tires slashed, and a neighbor's camera caught a blurry figure in orthopedic sandals, Karen's signature look. Durant said every action builds our case. But honestly, it started to feel less like justice and more like I was living in a low-budget thriller. She wasn't alone either. My gate got tampered with. I had to reinforce it, and my mailbox started getting weird notes. Karen had at least one neighbor helping her. It was no longer about HOA rules. It was a crusade against progress. Still, I had evidence, the law, and a growing circle of support. High school kids offered to help rebuild the array. Neighbors brought over coffee and sympathy. Karen put up signs, "Protect our skies, say no to solar tyranny," complete with a scarecrow holding a toy sun. The neighborhood was embarrassed, but Karen kept doubling down her house, turning into a little protest zone. Then came her legal counterstrike. She filed a restraining order claiming my panels were weaponized surveillance and that I'd threatened her with federal intimidation. The deputy serving it just shook his head. He'd had enough of her calls, too. I forwarded it all to Durant, who said it actually helped the case, shows her state of mind. And then the court date, just like that. A closed-door federal hearing. Karen showed up late, sunglasses on, indoors, her lawyer looking like he'd just Googled how to lawyer. The judge wasn't having it. She shut down Karen's rants, heard the facts, and confirmed the charges would proceed. She tossed Karen's restraining order for lack of evidence and warned her not to come near me or my property. Walking out of that courthouse, I felt not victorious, just relieved, like the poison had finally left the wound. Back home, things settled into a strange, hopeful new normal. The DOE brought in new panels, smarter, sleeker, with warnings so big even Karen couldn't miss them. Progress started to take root. Neighbors asked for advice on solar. Local news turned me into an accidental advocate, and kids from the high school wrote thank you notes. Karen, she became a ghost. Porch lights off, yard growing wild, no more. HOA meetings, her house a monument to what happens when control turns to obsession. But the best part, the DOE picked my house for the next phase of the solar pilot, turning the very thing Karen tried to destroy into a showcase. At the launch event, the whole neighborhood came out, even a couple city officials. The energy on my street finally felt like, energy, not conflict. And then came the moment nobody expected. Karen, plain jeans, cardigan, no entourage, crossing the street during the open house. She stood at the edge of my driveway, looked at the display, and quietly said, "I just came to see what all the damage was really for." No applause, no fight, just a hint of regret. I told her it's for this: clean power, resilient systems. so the next blackout doesn't knock us all flat. She didn't argue. She just nodded and left, and you know what? That was enough. The story was bigger than both of us now. As the sun set and the event wrapped up, Agent Durant handed me a flash drive final case docs. Karen would pay fines, lose her HOA role, and get assigned to community service, guiding tours at a solar education center. Yeah, you heard that right. Her badge would literally read, "Ask me about solar panels." Some things you can't make up. So that's how a cup of coffee, a crowbar, and a neighborhood feud turned into a lesson nobody on this street's ever going to forget. Progress in the end doesn't need permission. It just needs someone stubborn enough to keep standing in the sun even when the world throws shade. So tell me, where do you stand? Was Karen a hero for tradition, or did she finally prove that stubbornness without reason just leads to darkness? Drop your thoughts below. Community lines are open.